Let's first talk about David. All right, this guy's a singer. I'm too old to know him, but apparently he's popular. And apparently he's not cooperating, which is no surprise. Investigators say that a 15-year-old body was found in the singer's car in September 2025. The death was of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. And David Anthony Burke is actually the real name of singer David. And police have not interviewed the singer, so we don't know anything from him. And the first thing I want to talk about, and I'll jump to you, Ashley, is, yesterday we're told by TMZ sources that the body had been decapitated, chopped up, it was frozen, thrown into the car. And today it's like erase, erase, erase. Sorry, no, that's not accurate. What do you make of that? What's true?
I make out that nobody has a clue what happened to this poor girl. Nobody seems to know anything. They don't know how she died. They don't even know if it was natural causes. I mean, it could potentially, I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, she could have died from a drug overdose. And the actions that happened to her body after could be just a crime of covering up a death. It may not even be a murder at this point. So I think all of these different reports we're getting, was she decapitated? Was she cut up? Was she frozen? Was she thawed? What happened to her? Was she pregnant? I mean, I've even heard that. All of these different reports tell us that they don't really know anything about her. And, I think they're trying to keep it that way because the coroner has been asked, the medical examiner has been asked by the government, by the law enforcement, by LAPD to keep the results a secret. They applied for this secret warrant, to try and keep the results out of the public view and not to be transparent. And they got that. And so, we're not going to get any more information right now.
Yeah, Arthur.
Talk about
listen,
desperate, though,
yeah.
Mark. Talk about desperate. You mentioned TMZ.
Yes, tell me. You handle so many high-profile cases. You're constantly hearing what the media says, and it's a lot of times drastically different than what you know, right?
Well, they're also making this big deal, right? It's a headline yesterday. They're like, well, they're saying she was frozen,
Right.
and they were able to get into David's apartment that he rented. And guess what's in his apartment?
A freezer!
Freezer! Oh my God! And she's small enough to fit in that particular freezer. I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, I know you're going to sell the story. Like, I get it. I'm down with that. But we were born at night, not last night. That's why he's a big suspect, because she's allegedly frozen. And now they're backtracking whether she was even frozen or not. But that he has a freezer in his apartment, and they went there months later. I mean, Ashley's right. They don't know what's going on. I'll tell you, I'm involved in a very similar case, though, out here in New York at the end of Long Island in Montauk. There's a beautiful young woman, Martha Nolan. She was found dead on a ship, a yacht out here on the water in the boat. And we've done 2 autopsies, one marked by our friend, Dr. Bodden. We retained him on behalf of the family, and they can't figure out a cause of death. She appears, unfortunately, in the deceased state as an otherwise very healthy woman. And as Ashley mentioned about drugs, the toxicology has come back, but there's no drugs in her system that they could find that would cause her death. So sometimes we've all been involved in cases where you have someone who's gone, who's dead, and you don't know how they died.
So reports are, and here I am perpetuating maybe rumors, because who knows whether those reports are accurate, right? We have no idea. I mean, we really don't. But let's just go along with what we're hearing. Reports are saying they might not even know the manner or cause of this woman's death, right? Of this teenager's death, okay? But we're hearing that authorities might still be able to proceed with a criminal investigation and ultimately a prosecution. How is that possible, Ashley?
I think this is going to come down to the surveillance video. So one of the things that I wish they would actually release or talk about is the surveillance video from David's house. So he had, ring cameras, those types of things that a lot of people have. He's famous, and I put that in quotes because, I'm like you, Mark. I didn't really know who he was either, but he's famous. And so, the average Joe has surveillance video at their house. He definitely had surveillance video. So the police have been able to get that video. They also have a private investigator the family had hired that they were able to get that that actual information as well. And that is very likely gonna prove critical. Who had access to her? Think about it. Did someone drag a body out? Did someone, was she seen stumbling around? Who entered the house whenever she was there? Who exited the house? The timeline is going to be really important. The other thing that I think is going to be really important is the Tesla data. Cars have a lot of data. Phones have a lot of data. If you think about the scope of all the electronic evidence out there, they're going to be able to come up with a timeline. This girl definitely had a phone. Someone can track her. If you think about it, it's even as simple as an Apple Watch. You can track when someone dies based on an Apple Watch, and obviously it tracks breathing. So there's a lot of electronic data out there that tells me that they know a lot more than what they're letting on. I think that it's very disingenuous for them to be saying, oh, well, there's suspects. We think it's foul play, but we don't really know anything. I think they know a lot more than they're letting on.
Right, but it's not so bad that they don't tell us everything, Arthur. Isn't there a value to them keeping things close to the vest?
Value actually sometimes has to do with the person they may arrest. I was involved in a case where 7 people were shot here in New York, and they grabbed this kid. And when I get there as his attorney, there's a confession. He's swearing me he didn't do it. I go, what do you mean you have a confession? And I'm reading the confession, and it's all about, yes, I shot this one, I shot there, I was standing here, I used this kind of gun. And luckily, guys, I had a very ethical detective who I knew from my days as a prosecutor. And he called me aside and he said, all right, something's not right here. I said, what? He goes, his confession doesn't jive with the facts of the case. He couldn't have been standing there. He couldn't have used that weapon. And sure enough, there was a non-ethical detective who forced him to write that a confession. So the less facts that are out there, and then someone comes in and you're questioning them, and they do give you some sort of a confession, and whatever motivation they may have to lie or make things up or confess, even if they don't mean to, the more pure maybe the investigation will be. But we all know, I don't remember a case where the medical examiner was forced not to release the results. I'm not saying it never happened. I just don't have a recollection of it ever happened.
All right, are we outraged by that? Ashley, do we have a problem with that? Isn't it better for the integrity of the investigation to not reveal certain things?
I always think.
And by the way, wait, hold on. I just want to throw in too. Go back to OJ. There were like a dozen or so people who confessed to doing that, right? So you kind of need to know independently whether somebody is regurgitating details from the media or whether they know it firsthand, right?
Right. And the police always do that. They always withhold some type of information. But I also don't like convictions built on confessions. I think they're fallible. I think they should be built on actual evidence. People's memories are off. People's perception are off. I want actual evidence. I want this video evidence. I want DNA. I want some physical evidence that is not subject to human error, something like that. And what really bothers me about this is, let's just imagine for a minute that David didn't do it. Let's imagine he's innocent. Well, these little tiny leaks and speculation and them not actually giving full information, that's causing him a great deal of harm. He had to cancel his show. And I'm just saying, imagine in your mind that he didn't do it, because he's innocent until proven guilty. He's lost endorsements. He's had to move. He's had to hide. He had to come back from his entire, international tour that he was doing. There's a lot of things that are happening before he's even been a suspect. And I better believe, and you better believe, that if they had any evidence that that man harmed her, he would be in custody. He would be in custody.
Absolutely.
Like Ashley says, Artie, it's about getting evidence, right? So they did. Apparently, they got a search warrant and they went through his house. How do you handle it either way? Let's say they've got some stuff in there that might corroborate his involvement. Let's say they got nothing. You arguing he's framed like the Mona Lisa? What are you doing with that, Arthur?
Well, a lot of times you don't know, what they've gotten. What they didn't get until there's been an arrest and you find out, oh, they went through his house and they found nothing. Look, I was peripherally involved in a homicide case here where they never had the body mark. They just had DNA of the deceased in the trunk of the car.
That's enough for Matt Murphy. Matt Murphy gets convictions on those back in the day all the time he brags about.
And they just linked together some of the forensics. This was a while ago where everyone didn't have a Ring doorbell. Ultimately, there was a conviction without the deceased body. You don't even really know. You don't know if they're dead, but there's some statute that after a certain amount of time that they can be presumed dead, and the family, the next of kin, and all that stuff. So I don't know what they're going to do here. They have a lot more opportunity to get evidence, but Ashley's correct. if they had enough to give them probable cause to make this arrest, even if there wasn't enough to at this point to get a grand jury indictment, just to lock him down and know where he is. By the way, Mark, how do you spell his name again?
D4vd, whatever.
No. How do you spell?
D4vd.
VD reminds me of your days in college, but go ahead.
Oh,
anyway,
stop it. All right, so let's move this along. Let's move this along. Apparently, there's a second suspect, and we've got a clip we're going to play from our dear friend and fellow MK contributor, Mark Garagos. He knows a little bit more about this. Let's play that clip.
They also clearly have yet another person that is a target of this, not just David, but they've got somebody else. And I haven't heard yet whether that person is talking or cooperating, but if it's anything like the feds, the first person in is the person who's going to try to talk or cut a deal.
We need to talk about this. So my information is that the other suspect and or suspects has to do with dismembering the body. Is your information that this could actually have to do with her death?
Yeah, and I've got a name, but I'm not going to put it out there. I've already been told a name as well. And
a name of a suspect?
Of another person besides him. And
in connection with the death or the dismemberment?
But they're not ruling anything out.
Ashley,
the name is Scott.
That?
It's Scott Peterson. That's the name. It's Scott Peterson.
I think there was someone else involved anyway. I mean, it makes sense that someone else would be involved just given what we know. But particularly if you look at the submission that the police made, the LAPD actually filed something with the court to get this autopsy to be private, to not be released. And when they did that, they actually tipped their hat a little bit about they were concerned about witnesses and cooperating witnesses. And I think that was a tip of the hand where they were saying that they are actually talking with someone else who was involved. So I completely agree. There's got to be someone else involved at this point.
Alrighty.
Why? I mean, besides what Mark talked about, the integrity in the investigation. Again, between the three of us, it's a lot of legal years of experience, and we know how rare it is. Like, I don't know. I mean, unless it was like that kind of murderer who always left a branding on someone. So, okay, well, if it comes out that it has the branding on it, we're going to assume it's that person, and that could affect the integrity. But if we find out that she was strangled or she was stabbed or there was a gunshot to her head or there's poison in her system, I don't really know. At this point, I'm trying to use my imagination. How would it screw up the investigation?
Right. It is what it is. And that's what bothers me about it when they withhold this information. These investigations and arrests should be based on actual evidence, not something we withheld and we tricked someone into making a confession that matches the facts. It should be actual concrete evidence that is what it is.